Welcome to the show. This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. In the studio with me is Pete Chareonwongsak, the CEO of Teleport. Teleport is, of course, the logistics venture of AirAsia Digital, or Capital A now, as it is known. Pete, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us, taking the great hike into our humble studio here in All Asia Broadcasting Center, Bukit Jalil. Let's talk a little bit more about Teleport. I've been reading about you and your company for quite some time,
Thank you.
Including the possibility of buying new aircraft, the raising of funds.
Yep.
Let's do a quick stock take into where Teleport is as at early April.
Great to be here. Ibrahim, thanks for having me. I think where we are is April 1, the borders have opened in Malaysia. 85% of our business used to be international or cross-border. So that's coming back, so we're excited and we're happy to be here.
All right, now we're talking about the fundraising. You've
Yep.
been quoted by saying that you want to raise between 50 to 100 million
Yep.
US dollars.
Yep.
Where is that?
We're still on track for that, so somewhere between 50 to 100 is where we'll close. I give it another 6 weeks before we can make any sort of announcement. But
Wow, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, of
So
course.
being very
this is,
specific.
when it first came out, it was targeted to be towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
What will be some of the delays resulting in this?
I think it's not easy, to be honest. I think we underestimate how hard it is to raise money the first time. And I think the first time is always the hardest. And so for us, it's just been a learning process, to be honest. And I think it's also important that people want to see recovery, right? So people want to see that, borders are going to open and the things we say, depend on certain things that we don't control happen. And now that they're happening, then it becomes a lot easier to get it done.
And to be frank, a lot of anguish and anger and kind of misdirection has been hated towards Capital A or even
Understood.
Asia.
Understood.
I'm not thinking so much about the brand of Teleport per se yet.
Yeah.
I think it's still quite novel. I
Yep.
think there's a lot of room to grow here.
Yep.
And as a big group, as Capital A is, of course, Tony was mentioning that he wants to project to the market that you guys want to think about moving away from the non-airline business.
Yep.
So where does Teleport fit in that whole Capital A, I guess, business
Kind of
structure?
ecosystem, right?
Yeah, ecosystem. That's
Yeah,
the
so
word,
I think if you think about Capital A, where they started, which is with AirAsia, it's moving people from A to B, right? Southeast Asia, connect all of Southeast Asia. We're just trying to move things across Southeast Asia. So we're very kind of analogous to that, but more kind of things-centric than people-centric. So that's where we fit. And obviously, you mentioned the point also that it's great to be clean sheet. Like it's great to be separate and clean sheet, new brand, new business focus. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve, which is can we generate that focus in a clean sheet environment like Teleport? That's
so
what we're trying to do.
to move things, you got to have a very good fleet.
Exactly.
Talk to us through the
Yeah.
A321 purchase,
Yep.
the freights that you have on the ground, everything.
Yep. So the simple way we started the business was we just think of it like building pipes. So like building pipes that connect A to B, right? And Southeast Asia has 232 cities. We want to connect them all to each other. And that's not easy because you need multiple things, as you said, infrastructure, right? So we are ultimately building infrastructure. The first thing we did was we basically used that space on a plane when you and I fly to Sabah or overseas to Singapore or something like that, where it's empty space, excess space, free space. And I think that's what we tried to exploit the first part of the business on, which is, can we put something on a plane when passengers fly, like you and I? And that was great pre-COVID. I mean, we got to a revenue run rate of $115 million. So it's not a small business in a very short period of time. And then you know what happened with COVID? That all disappeared overnight, literally overnight, right? March 18th, 2020. And so after that, we had to figure out what are we going to do when our core doesn't exist, which is this entire network of passengers flying all the time doesn't exist. So we said, we have to be able to figure out how to fly planes even when passengers don't fly. So we started to move into at least flying the passenger planes for our customers and our cargo. And then equally so, we said, well, if we're doing it with passenger planes, we should really optimize and get freighters. And so that's how we ended up evolving into 737 freighters. Believe it or not, the first time we've ever operated a Boeing aircraft. We put that in Thailand. And now our long-term
That's
goal.
right. Honestly, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And it's not because I'm
7%.
Thai. It's not because I'm Thai. It's just because it's a great hub for business and for commerce. And so actually our first freighter actually was in Bangkok. And then
All right.
now you talked about the 321s. We hope we can announce something soon, but the goal is 321s are the same Airbus aircraft type as our passenger planes. So there's
The
so much.
A320.
Exactly, and there's so much economies of scale there. So what we're trying to figure out is how to evolve everything to that over time, because we really have been flying just passenger planes for cargo and e-commerce in the interim. The last thing I'll say also is, hey, you and I don't go to the airport to pick up our stuff. We're at home. We want to deliver to door. So what we had to do was do first mile all the way through to last mile. So we had to connect literally riders, vans, cars, with our planes and deliver things end to end. So that's what we're trying to do when we say we're building pipes.
You know, okay, we'll talk about your competitor in a bit,
Sure.
or competitors in a bit.
Sure.
But I just want to tap into that whole freighter order book right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how's it coming along? How much you guys ordering? How much do you guys have right now in the fleet?
So we've said in the pipeline we want to get to 6 freighters dedicated by the end of 2024. And that's really a conservative plan. That's like we will deliver 6. And this year, if we're lucky, we'll have 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we would have hit our first 3 or 50% of the plan already. But the goal here was why stop there? And I think the key here is to discuss, well, if you just work on what demand exists today, cross-border, end-to-end e-commerce, it's not big enough. What you need to do is disrupt the market. And the way we think about disrupting the market is say, if you and I could deliver something anywhere across our network in 24 hours end-to-end, at 50% of the cost of what you would pay anyone else, then that's how we think about disrupting the market. So put simply, if you said teleport it became the verb to send something from A to B in 24 hours anywhere we were, anywhere at all in Southeast Asia, then we would have created a market.
All right. We'll also need to talk about some of the competitors, household names from DHL, UPS, you name it, right?
Yeah.
They've been around for quite some time. They have a full-fledged suite of fleet from trucks to planes, freighters, you name it.
Yep.
So how are you going to disrupt the market when the incumbents are big and strong and have been there for quite some time?
Absolutely. I mean, great question. I mean, fundamentally is who has the best network in Southeast Asia? I think it starts there, right? And that best network is in some ways kind of endowed on us with our relationship with capital A. So we start there with, you don't have a good network, you can't really compete. 2 is, you know, DHL and UPS, they want to own everything, right? So they buy the planes, they buy their vans, they buy their trucks, and they put everything together. Now that's really expensive. And so if you're not focused in Southeast Asia, where actually it's very hard to buy everything to connect everywhere in Southeast Asia because we're so wide, we're so broad, we're so, you know, it's very fragmented, right? Islands and so on. Then it's a very difficult proposition if you want to own everything to connect the entire region. So what they end up doing is they end up connecting the capital cities really well, right? So if you and I want to send a document through one of our competitors, it's very easy to do that. And they'll say, okay, in 3 days it'll be there, and you know that you can trust it, but it's extremely expensive. And so I think the proposition here is, do you have to own everything to do what they do? And I think our answer is, we think not. And secondly, it's, can we do it at a cost that is much, much cheaper than what is happening today, but to send everywhere, not just, you know, to KL, Singapore, Bangkok, you know, the main cities, but to really send things anywhere across Southeast Asia. That was the basic difference. And the reason that I feel like you don't have to own everything anymore is just look at the internet economy, right? I mean, look at Grab, look at Gojek, look at others that are able to build really great businesses in many ways without actually owning their underlying, you know, kind of fleet and infrastructure. They're able to kind of provide enough access and, you know, kind of technology to help power that without having to own it.
But it seems also like the problem statement that you guys are trying to solve is, and pardon me, not as clear as, say, for instance, Asia. When Asia first started off, we had full-fledged airlines. It's not that cheap to travel. AirAsia came to the picture, solved it, and you know, they came at a time when I was a student, so I couldn't thank AirAsia enough, right? But now that we have so much solution in terms of logistics, delivery, transnational border, whatever you name it, what is the problem statement that you guys are trying to solve predominantly?
The problem statement is to connect things that you order online today that are actually coming from overseas, actually. You just don't see it. It's in the pipes that you don't see, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a user interface, whatever, like Lazada, Shopee, Shein, whatever.
You don't care as long as it comes to your door eventually.
Exactly.
What's the experience that you have today, which is when you order something, you don't really know when it's coming. You have a guess. And so as a consumer, you figure out, whenever it gets here, as long as it's cheap or reasonable, then, you know, I'll wait for it. But I think what we're trying to do is say, look, if you use us, it's 24 hours guaranteed from source. And I think that's really different because, you know, if you order something and it's out of stock, or you order something and it's somewhere else and it takes a long time, it's hard to track, what we can do is deliver from source, which is usually from other countries or from China, right? And so I think that's key for us to be able to deliver that proposition to you.
Okay, we'll go for one short break before we continue on our conversation with Pete Chareonwongsak of Teleport. Welcome back. I have with me in the studio Pete Chareonwongsak, the CEO of Teleport. Pete, let's talk a little bit more about what you said earlier, which is that this business is capital intensive. I don't want to go through the whole notion of how Capital A Berhad right now is going through some tough times. I
Yep.
wish you guys all the best. All stars really do require the best of work. You guys have done so much pleasure in terms of bringing value and justice and happiness, I guess, throughout the region.
Yep.
But balance sheet is not good.
Yep.
Cash flow, of course, is decimated.
Sure.
And the economy is opening up, yes, of course, and not just in Malaysia, but of course across the region. But
Yep.
the road to recovery is a slow one,
Yep.
and it seems like many of us who do go through the Capital A announcements,
Yep.
product launches, and the likes, we can see the plan moving forward. But
Yep.
of course, this is all a function of time. With Teleport,
Yep.
you hit the nail on the head because it is capital intensive. You guys want to raise capital.
Yep.
Hopefully 6 weeks from now I can get you back in the studio and we can talk
Sure.
a little bit more about the capital structure.
Sure.
But how is it going to be moving forward when it comes to capital planning in terms of
Sure.
improving your fleet, manpower,
Sure.
reorganizing your headcount within the Capital A
Sure.
family? How
Sure.
is that going to work out?
So it starts by being separate, right? And I think that's something important. Where if you have the same common balance sheet, then obviously, there are challenges to allocate, right? So to us, to have to build something like a startup is to be completely separate. So that was step one, which is we are a completely separate set of entities, and we're in separate, kind of markets, and we do separate things, and we're independent in that way. That's one. But two, obviously, that doesn't address the question of funding. And I think your question ultimately comes down to how capital intensive is Teleport, let's say specifically. And in our case, I think it comes down to, do we have to own everything ourselves to build out something valuable, like what we're saying, like a competitor to some of our other guys that own everything themselves? And the key here is, when you look back, you don't actually have to do that. So AirAsia as the airline has done so well by building up this network, right, that connects all of us anywhere in Southeast Asia. So we're actually riding on top of that. And there are many other airlines. There are 38 low-cost carriers in Southeast Asia that have done the same. But they don't actually have a logistics business. And so what we're trying to do is show them how we can actually add value to their infrastructure without them having to build new infrastructure. So we're trying to get efficiency out of existing stuff. So you don't have to build more stuff, put more money in, operate only freighters. But secondly, we do operate freighters too, right? So how do we do that? Actually, there are people that operate freighters for us. So we don't actually have to purchase the planes directly, kind of put up all that CapEx, because ultimately there are people that are ready and happy to operate the infrastructure for us. They just want to know that you can fill my space. You can take my contract and make sure that you're able to move stuff from A to B consistently for a long period of time. So what's key here is less about owning everything, putting all the money down. It's to be able to connect that infrastructure so that we can bring demand to supply and have enough supply for demand. That's basically it. So that's our goal. So it's not quite a platform, but it's basically connecting supply and demand together to make sure that you can bring demand from customers, including ourselves, our own brand, but also third parties. We have 700 of independent customers that also use our infrastructure with us, and bring that to basically people that provide supply, which is infrastructure, which is empty space on a plane when passengers fly, or freighters and operators that fly the freighters for us, if that makes sense.
So it does make sense, but it does bring about that whole focus now, because initially I thought this was a capital-intensive business.
Yeah.
Now, with that picture that you painted, it
Yeah.
seems like you got to bring your A game in terms of your supply chain management, project management,
Exactly.
client relationship management, you
Exactly.
name it, right?
Exactly.
These are the connective tissues that will achieve
Absolutely.
whatever that you set out just now.
Absolutely.
How's it coming along?
Technology. So, you and I don't have the mental bandwidth to
not.
manage this level of, kind of complexity.
We do not.
So it's technology. So
Yeah.
actually what we do on our
Factor
balance sheet.
in delays and weather,
Exactly.
you
So,
name it.
when you track something from A to B, and if you break it down, if you're interested, I'll show you one day, is from A
I'd
to
rather
B.
not just tell me, oh my God, this is
So
something
A to
that I really
B
want to stay away from.
is 150 processes to deliver, from one place, pick up at your house, to destination, send to someone else's house in another city or another country. It's 150 processes. No human being can coordinate that with their own, spreadsheets, pieces of paper, fax, phone, and all that. What you need is technology that allows you to plug all these different points in so that you can actually see the A to B. So that's what we invested in. You asked about our balance sheet. We only have two things on our balance sheet, right? We have people capital and technology. That's it. And so that's our hope, that we build this stack so that we can actually coordinate A to B, and the technology allows us to do so in a way that is scalable.
Okay, let's finally talk about the last mile problem or solution that you want to bring about.
Yeah.
Not just about the customer and customer like me, but
Yeah.
perhaps the cottage industry folks that want to sell their products,
Yep.
even large companies, right? They want to sell
Yep.
their products. How do you
Yep.
solve that bit there?
Yeah, so one is access, and two is actually that the last mile infrastructure, you have an option to control it yourself or to give it to people that are great at it for you. So when I say Southeast Asia is a big canvas, basically no one can do it themselves. That's the reason for why our business exists, that it's so fragmented, it's so difficult when you want to send something from A to B. You end up either doing a very small component of it yourself, let's say the competitors that send it to capital cities, or then places that are really far away, like East Malaysia even, or cross-border somewhere like Manila or elsewhere. It just takes forever. It takes 2 weeks, maybe you send it to the postal system and you wish luck and then you hope it gets there eventually, right?
Yeah.
So the key is that's what the industry solution looks like today. So how do you make it different? That means there are places in Southeast Asia where third parties can do it really well, like Klang Valley, Singapore, and others where you can partner with people and they can deliver for you last mile. They're happy to do that. They want more volume. They're always going to want more volume for their infrastructure. So you partner with them. And the technology access is what allows you to do that. So you connect two people together, another partner, and then basically pass them the information of what you need delivered to the last mile and where and by when. And so basically we try to do that where we can so we don't have to replicate what other people have done so well, right? And there's so many competitors. I mean, in Malaysia there's more than 60 courier companies. So there's enough choice. But they don't cover the bits, or parts of Malaysia that you want to deliver in 24 hours, but they just can't do it. So East Malaysia, we talked about it earlier, it has a lot of cities, right? Sabah, in terms of Tawau, Sandakan, Miri, and just places where it's tier 2, tier 3 cities where no one really wants to deliver there or has great access. So we build it ourselves to ensure that our brand promise of 24 hours remains. But so we have that two-pronged strategy.
There is a reason why companies don't want to find hesitancy in terms of delivering these tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Yeah.
It's not because they hate people there, of course not.
Sure.
But it doesn't create that economies of scale.
Yeah.
How does that justify you serving these smaller cities?
Yeah, so it comes and starts again from the network, which is our network is point to point, meaning we fly direct into these cities. We don't fly through another hub and then truck it somewhere else and then eventually get there. We fly direct.
So it's a tack-on service.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is we know how much we can move at a single time into these cities, on every flight or per day or by the end of the morning. And so what we end up doing is we're able to match last mile capacity or number of drivers and riders with how much is coming through that day. And so in that case, we always believe that who's the best people to deliver to your door? It's the people that live there. And so really this ability to kind of take local delivery partners and tie it up with what we know is coming on our planes and coming to the end of the landing strip when we land, and we're able to pass that on to them. That's really how we do it. So what's key for us actually to deliver 24 hours is actually to know before we actually take off how much we're going to deliver and to where and by when. And then that's really how we then match that up with last mile capacity. That's kind of how we try to do it.
It seems like there has to be near ubiquitous and synonymous collaboration with AirAsia.
For sure.
The brand itself and the flight itself, not just about the capital A, whatever.
Yeah.
How does that come along in terms of the synergy between the two parties?
So again, technology, you have to integrate into their systems, all the way through into like their planning systems, right? So for example...
So you're basically a CTO, honestly, rather than not just the CEO.
Yeah. So we have to integrate with, the airline system that plans, how much fuel to uplift, that has to plan, how many passengers are going to be on board and therefore how much space is left over. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's very data intensive, very technology intensive, but that's the value. Because if you do it the manual way, okay, the pilot will tell me how much there is, and then you figure it out then, it's too late. And so it's really all planning. It's a planning business at the end of the day. And then, you're using technology to help you with that.
Final item that I want to touch upon is on the brand equity. When we talk about DHL, FedEx, UPS, these are, unfortunately, I don't have the empirical evidence, but people think about these brands as old and reliable. Nobody thinks of them as the new age kind of Gen Z millennial kind of brand, but at the same time, I'm just going to service something, send it across over using FedEx. It's a done deal. How do you create that brand, that teleport brand, to achieve at least to that level? Also, is there some other imagination that you want to achieve to? Is there some other aspirations that you want to achieve?
Well, I think first is to deliver a great service, right? Which is, that's core. So if we say 24 hours and it feels like that's a big deal, but we deliver it every time, like we exceed people's expectations. So our brand promise is, never on time, always early. So meaning always easier and better than your expectation. Then I think that's the start of what people would recognize us for what we're doing. And that's the most important thing, what we're doing, not what we're saying. And I think the second thing is obviously to have a brand that people can use in their day-to-day life, right? So teleport it could be a verb, right? I send it to you, like I teleport it to you. Is something that can catch on if you kind of get it.
You did not do that. It's like I Google it, something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. So that's and so that happens after you deliver great service.
Okay, I see what you
And then
mean.
the third is make it about people. I think a lot of times when you're building pipes, you don't see the people and the things that are getting done behind the scenes. And so in that way, if you can make your people the forefront of how you actually experience your service, which hopefully was good, 24 hours from A to B, and you see the people behind it and you make them the forefront of the brand, then there's some soul, right? That's really what people are looking for: connection, purpose, community. And so you want to demonstrate that through your brand in different ways, and that's what we're trying to do over time.
The pandemic has hit the travel business the hardest, I presume.
It has. Yeah.
Do you use this time to actually plan? I guess a scheme on how to move your business forward.
Yeah.
Is this some sort of a blessing in disguise, or is this something that the best thing that you can make out of a bad situation?
I think so, and I think that creates, hopefully, the environment for innovation, right? When you're forced to do it, when you're forced to evolve, and I think that's the blessing that sometimes you don't know how far you can go until you're forced to do it. And I think in this case, when you have to survive and there's existential kind of need to adapt, and then you definitely evolve and you definitely innovate. I can give you a simple example. Our first operations planners, like the guys that are plotting and scheming, as you said, to figure out how to move something from A to B, were pilots. And it doesn't make any intuitive sense until you realize that's what they do for a living.
Oh.
They literally map out how to get from A to B. And they do it in the sky where it's extremely complicated. So they can do mental math in their head, they can calculate things on the fly. And then you realize moving things is actually a lot easier for them to figure out, even if there's a lot of complexity. So our first two operations planners were pilots. And they were available because they weren't flying. So we started there. Then the second thing we discovered was who are great last mile delivery. We talked about people, right, and making that impression. Who are great last mile, kind of delivery drivers? Cabin crew. They are customer service orientated. They call you before they're coming 5 minutes before. They speak, kind of great Bahasa or great English. They engage with you. It's not just, hey, I'll drop something there and then bye, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So that 10 seconds, then we realized, wow, it doesn't cost much, but people really value that. Like they want to feel like, okay, there was some interaction with somebody, right, when they were receiving something. And so then we learned. And then we said, okay, we have to learn how to integrate that into like how we do it every single time, right? So whether we do it just one time with that cabin crew, but we actually can do it all the time as an SOP. And so we learned that. So these are the things that came about because we were forced to kind of figure out how to make the best of a bad situation, as you said. Our third one was engineers. They run warehouses, right? Think about all the stock take that they have to do for the planes and the parts. So when they had to figure out how to sort our parcels, right? Let's say I sort in Klang Valley to deliver somewhere in Orchard Road in Singapore. I mean, they're able to do this in their mind because they're doing it every day for little parts that are extremely expensive for planes and so on. So when we had that kind of talent readily available and we brought them into the business, even if it's a business that is separate but still very closely related, we just learned so much. And then we realized, let's not think about things, conventionally. Let's think about things unconventionally. And so that's how we kind of evolved our business, by just giving you these couple of examples of how some of that played a part in kind of figuring out how to do what we do.
You gotta be kidding me. This is a very interesting story. I really need to ask you more about that.
Sure, please.
We're running out of time, however.
No problem.
Final question is, what would be some of the 2 or 3 things that we need to keep out and keep an eye out for Teleport?
So we've got a big brand campaign out to make the invisible pipes a little more visible, Teleport. And so you can see us on a couple billboards. You can see us on social media. You can see us follow you around on the web. Hopefully just kind of say hi and interact if you can, and just get to know us a little bit longer, and just kind of click in and see what you can discover about us. 2 is try something. If you go on our website today, teleport.asia, you can actually start sending something anywhere in our network today, end to end, and we'll pick up. And all it takes is just put where you are and where you want to deliver to, pay, takes 3 clicks, honestly. And then someone will come and pick something up and deliver. So try it, please try it. Fantastic. And then the third is look out for, kind of more things that we're doing and we're announcing, and please kind of support the brand if you can.
I am looking only at one thing at you guys, which is the balance sheet and P&L.
Okay.
Not just for Teleport, but of course at Capital.
I'll see you in 6 weeks.
But that is it for our conversation with Pete Chareonwongsak, the CEO of Teleport. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com. Look for the interview there. You can also look for Notepad as well. on all our social sites as well as on our website. Until then, thanks very much for watching. Catch you in the next one.